Come on in, everyone. Come on in because we are here for a review of a clip I saw with Maurice and Kimmy. This was from one of the last episodes. And this is sort of a continuation of when we're kind of looking at all of the mess that's happened around Maurice and Kimmy and how they're running into some sort of marital problems. It finally took Melody. It took Melody to leave Love and Marriage Huntsville altogether before we could really start digging into these marriages of Tisha and Maurice and Kimmie and Maurice, because we've always known that Tisha and Marceau and Kimmie and Maurice got their own problems. But, when Melody was there, they were so effective at always sort of talking about Melody and Martell, right? So it kind of allowed Tisha and Kimmie to stay out of the spotlight. And once Melody says, you know what? You know how I quiet the room? I leave the room. I've told people this. Listen, let me tell you something. The way you quiet a room when you just can't get people from talking about you, you think you can just tell them, stop talking about me, stop talking about me. You remove yourself, because what you realize is toxicity doesn't really want to solve problems. They want to deflect. So when Melody was on the show, I got tired of watching it, because I got tired of watching how everyone made the whole show about Melody. And so now what we're seeing is, once Melody is gone, guess who the spotlight is on? Right? People can take a page out of this in your own life. If you are in strife with someone and they are constantly blaming you for all the problems in the relationship or what you do or what you say, just go silent. Just go silent. If your husband is saying you nag him too much, stop nagging. Once you go silent and you make your room dark, it just points to where the real problem is. And I think we're seeing that here. But happy King Day. I'm taping this video on Martin Luther King Day. Happy King Day. And what did Martin Luther King, what did he stand for? Let me read something. Martin Luther King, he stood for equality and justice. He stood for equality and justice. So right now, today, we got Maurice and Kimmie both fighting for their own equality and their own justice. They sure are. That's what they're doing. They're fighting for their position, equality, and justice in this marriage. They have opposing points of view. Maurice told Kimmie that we are unequally yoked. We're not equal. We're not yoked. Now, they trying to practice some nonviolence. That's also what Martin Luther King stood for. I know some of y'all out there saying right now, people need to put some hands on Maurice. In fact, we saw a clip coming up next week where even Marceau was ready to put some hands on Maurice. So Maurice is having problems. But what did Martin Luther King say? Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Talk, Martin Luther King. Speak to us. Martin Luther King also stood for hope and resilience. Hope and resilience. Does Kimmie and Maurice have enough hope for their marriage that they can be resilient in this marriage and get past this moment and continue down the road of marriage? Or will they lose hope? Will they become not able to withstand the storm that they're in? And he also stood for, Martin Luther King, collective responsibility, right? And I'm going to tell you right now that when I watch this show, I'm seeing Kimmie not take some responsibility for how she got here.
What we're not going to do is keep playing in my face about it. You can count. You can determine where we were when those days happened, when it was more than once and this, that, and the other. They were in most of your investment properties. when you were working, when we were spending time, and I was watching you do the that I like to see. The things that you just don't like to do. You were building, laying floors, laying carpet, putting up cabinets, all that stuff that I would come and get turned on watching you do that you simply don't want to do. So here I am trying to get turned on by myself. Ain't that something? Yeah.
Maybe, well,
That's what you want. You want me to get turned on by myself just for you being
me.
pretty.
Yeah. It was never communicated to me early on that these are the terms of our relationship.
Terms?
Yes.
It wasn't communicated to me early on that I was supposed to have sex 2 and 3 times a day.
You were doing it.
No, and you were building. Stop that, Maurice.
No,
Who do you think this is?
This is what I'm saying. I thought it was because of me. I didn't think it was because I was building.
Well, and I thought it was because of me, not because of sex 3 times a day. So if that's the case, you can get that anywhere. And if the time and attention we got was me watching you build stuff, it also provided a medium for us to sit and talk for hours. I get neither of those anymore.
Why did you marry me then?
Oh, because I liked that you were building and doing stuff.
But I wasn't building and doing stuff when you married me, though.
I'm not mad, Maurice. You've grown, and you've grown into the attorney soft hand era. I'm okay with it.
Soft hand era.
But
wow.
with the soft hand era, change in you comes a change in me, and we just have to figure out the meet in the middle. Literally, that's all that is. But we can't keep having the conversation that I'm the only one that changed. That we won't keep doing because that gets us nowhere.
This conversation is circular. I think we're at an impasse because we're on a circular...
Why do you think it's circular, though? Because there's stuff that was a turn on for me, things that brought me into the relationship that you are staunch about not doing. And therefore, it has made changes in me as well, which make it difficult for you to get all the things that you want.
See,
you don't think that there's no middle? Honestly?
I think that, no, I don't believe there's a middle.
Really?
No, I don't. That's why we're at an impasse.
So then why go to the therapist? Why waste money?
This is frustrating, to be honest with you.
It's frustrating to me, too.
First of all, Kimmy, I'd have never misled you into thinking that this is what it was. Whatever made you think I was that was misleading. I definitely have changed. And it looks like we're gonna...
We're gonna what?
I don't know.
We're gonna what?
And I'm not gonna speak negativity over our lives.
Why would you? Why would you?
I'm not. That's why I said I'm not gonna do it.
Why would you even think it?
Because I think it.
Think what? You said before we even went to therapy, you want me to be happy even if we're not together.
Mm-hmm.
So is that what this comment you don't want to spill out is about?
I'm not gonna say it.
Well, you shouldn't have said it then.
You ready to go?
What I'm seeing in Kimmy is that she is trying to do a really good job at not being a part of the problem, and she's absolutely part of the problem. Maurice is a problem, but Kimmy's got to see her part in. This is what's called collective responsibility. It can't be one person's fault. It never is. Because even if there's one person's fault, there's an enabler, you see? Even if we have this conversation, which is what Kimmy wants to talk about, which is Maurice is somewhat of a sex addict. Got it. Got it. Maurice is going to have to take responsibility for why do you want to have sex 3 and 4 times a day? You're a sex addict. Why are you a sex addict? That's something you got to figure out. But you're a sex addict. But Kimmy's got to take responsibility for what Maurice called her out on was, well, why is it a problem now, but it wasn't a problem before we got married? Boom, there it is. Boom, there it is. And what Martin Luther King says, it takes courage and action. And what Kimmy's going to have to do, as MLK said, is have some courage. Because when I was watching this show, I said, you can be wrong and right at the same time. And what Maurice is wrong with is expecting someone to have sex with him 3 or 4 times a day. He's wrong, 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 wrong. Don't nobody want to do that. Listen, there may be someone, let me not speak for everybody out here in the world. There are some people who want to do it. And the reason why I know there's some people who want to do it, because Kimmie used to be one of them. She used to be one of them. And Maurice pointed that out. You used to be one of them. So what changed? Kimmie's got to admit she changed. She's got to admit that. She can't keep saying, oh, and the only reason I changed is because Maurice is in his soft hands era. Because before, I didn't mind having sex with you twice a day, 3 times a day, because you were turning me on with all of your handcraft, fixing things, building things. Kimmie, let's be honest. Kimmie, you're not going to make no progress, Kimmie, if you're not honest. And the truth about it, Kimmie, is the reason why you had sex with Maurice 2 and 3 times a day before you were married is because you wanted him to marry you. That's what you did it for. You did it to get something. You were willing to do whatever you needed to do to get what you wanted, which was marriage. You got to be honest. But she doesn't want to be honest, because then Maurice would then say, see, you tricked me. You tricked me. But Kimmie, what you got to understand in the courage that Martin Luther King is saying, in the collective responsibility, you got to admit your part. And it's okay to admit, you know what, you right. You right. I did participate in your sex addiction. That ain't no different from if you got a friend who's a drunk, a friend who like to smoke crack, and you smoking crack right along with them. You getting high right along with them. But one day you wake up and say, you know what, I don't want this for my life. This actually does not make me happy. It's okay to say there was a time when you were addicted to sex as you are now, and I enabled you. I engaged in it with you, right? Because I wanted to be with you. But now I done gone through a change. I'm older now. I'm wiser now. I'm tired of living that life, which was never what I really wanted to do, but I did it in order to get what I wanted, which was for you to marry me. Kimmie has got to be honest. But it doesn't mean the conversation ends there, you see, because what Maurice was telling Kimmie, which I know Kimmie is in counseling, so the counselors can tell her, this is what she came for, to tell her Maurice is all wrong. A lot of people go to counseling for this. They go to counseling because they want to hear from the therapist, the professionals, that their spouse is the problem, right? Because they believe they have the higher ground. But when they get in counseling, they don't want to admit anything that they did because they think they had the upper hand. Like I said, I always believe that Maurice is the bigger problem. He's going to be the more difficult one to sort of turn around. But Kimmie can't be walking around thinking as if she holier than thou and she don't have no part in this. She was an enabler. She did what she needed to do to get Maurice to marry her. Then once she got sick with the cancer, she physically could not do it anymore. You see what I'm saying? Then she told Maurice, well, the only reason I'm not doing it now, Maurice, is because I physically can't do it because of the cancer. Maurice wasn't even happy about that. We all saw the selfishness in him wanting his wife to perform at the same sexual duties while she was doing chemo, radiation, everything else. We just thought that's ruthless. It's selfish. But back then, Kimmie still couldn't admit the truth. She said, well, I can't do it because I got cancer. Now she cured. She feeling better. Maurice is saying, well, then why can't you resume your duties now? Now her new excuse, and I'm going to call it an excuse because she don't want to tell the truth, is, well, I'm not doing it now because you in your soft hand era. Girl, just say the truth. It don't matter if he was building a whole house like Marceau is building. You still would not want to have sex 3 times a day. And Kimmy, it's okay. But until you admit that and admit that you went outside yourself, you did something that naturally you probably didn't really want to do initially, but you did it because at the time, the suffering, that price you paid of laying down 3 and 4 times a day was worth what you wanted in the end, was to get married. But now you're married. And now you realize, I can't keep this up. Let me tell you, a lie is hard to keep up for a lot of years. You can do a lie for a year, 2 years. And I can't think of how long Kimmie and Maurice have been married. Maybe 5 years? I don't even know. But she might have could have done it for a first year or 2. But every time along the way, Kimmy started coming up with more and more reasons, when the truth of the matter is she only did it in the first place to get married. And she didn't want to give Maurice that in this conversation. But she's going to have to admit it to solve the rigor issue. That does not absolve the problems of Maurice, which is, why do you have to have sex 3 times a day? So there were so many mistakes that were made, in terms of this conversation, in terms of what it's going to take for them to get their marriage back on track. Because let me tell you something. This is another thing people don't understand about marriage. Everybody changes in marriage. Whoever you were when you got married, I guarantee you in 5 years, you will be a different person in some aspect of your life. No one stays the same person. So what's tough about marriage is, how do you have the marriage evolve as you and your spouse are evolving? See, people think, I'm marrying this person today for who they are. That's how they're in love. This feels good. Let's get married. They don't think about the fact that in 5 years, you or him or both of you are going to be different people. What are you going to do? This is why most marriages only last 5 years. Because what is the difficult part in marriage is when you or your spouse starts to evolve or change and become different. Can you adjust? And if you can't adjust to the changes in your partner, or your partner and the changes in you, that's when you get to unequally yoked. That's when you get to irreconcilable differences. And that's when people throw on the towel, right? If you want to have a series of relationships, which means every 5 years, you don't have to learn to adjust to a person, then what you do is you break up every 5 years and you go and get a new partner that matches where you are in life. That's what a lot of people do. When they've changed in 5 years, they say, hey, the person I am now is unequally yoked with the man I married or the woman I married, and we can't get on the same page, so we are going to break up. We're going to divorce. Then I'm going to get another partner who is where I am right now. That person is meeting me once again where I am. We are equally yoked. This feels good. And then I get with that person, and then in 5 years, we become unequally yoked again. And then that breaks up. And then I go on again. If I'm not too hurt and not too damaged, I go on again and get another partner. But a lot of people along the way, after they've done that 2 times, sometimes 3 times, they're so tired of having to go out and find another person, they just decide to stop dating, right? So that's why I tell people, relationships are work. It doesn't matter if you're single and you're getting a new relationship every 5 years, or if you are in a marriage and you are actually redefining your marriage every 5 years. We all doing it. So when people say struggle marriage, struggle singlehood, marriages are work. Now, one person is doing the work with different people every 5 years. Another person is doing the work every 5 years with a spouse. Married people shouldn't look at themselves as any better than single people. And single people definitely shouldn't be thinking of themselves any better than married people. Single people shouldn't be thinking that they somehow have a lock on happiness because they don't have to redefine relationships with people. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And single people shouldn't be looking down on married people shouldn't be looking down on single people thinking, this for that. There's trade-offs. But here we are with Maurice and Kimmie. And Maurice said to Kimmie that he's actually learning something about himself in this counseling. It sounds as if they've been a counselor before, but these particular therapists are helping him move the needle. Kimmie should be happy about this, that the needle is moving, because the worst thing where therapy doesn't work is when the needle don't get moved, when you're in therapy and you ain't changing or learning or growing. And it sounds like previously there was no learning or growing for Maurice. Maurice is stubborn. He's hard-headed. He's selfish. And I said it before I even saw this episode, that the only way you're going to get Maurice to change is not for you, Kimmie. He is not going to change his ways just to make you happy. That's why he's sitting here basically telling you, I'm not giving up sex 3 or 4 times a day. So we are unequally yoked. So we might need to be thinking about divorce. He didn't say it out loud, but that's what he was thinking. He's saying, listen, I hear you don't want to have sex, multiple times a day, but that's what I wanted before I met you. That's what I wanted now. And if you're not willing to give it to me, then we're unequally yoked and we might need to look at a divorce. But where Kimmie interrupted Maurice's growth was when he started saying that the reason why he likes the counselors is because he likes to get 2 different perspectives. And in the middle of Maurice sharing that he likes to get 2 perspectives, Kimmie said, you think? Wrong, Kimmie. Why didn't you just let him talk? Why didn't you let him start to talk about this needle moving? He started to get to the point, which is what I said before, which is, why do you let sex? Why do you like sex 3 and 4 times a day? He pointed out that it was the male therapist who was the one who really wanted to explore the reasons. The female therapist judged him right away and said, that ain't normal. And Kimmie liked her because she echoed Kimmie's thoughts. That ain't normal. But what Maurice said he latched onto was the male therapist, because the male therapist didn't get stuck on the fact that what he was doing was wrong or right. He wanted to get to the why. And when Maurice was starting to come out and say, hey, I like the road he was going down because he was going to help me understand not just what I'm doing, but why I'm doing it, Kimmie interrupted it, because what Kimmie wanted to stay stuck on was, well, it doesn't matter what the male therapist was doing because it's not normal. That's not the point, Kimmie. See, Kimmie just wants to get to where she's right, that it's not normal. But I keep telling you, Kimmie, that's not where your healing is going to come from. That's not where the growth is going to come from. Maurice has got to get to a point where he wants to do it for the betterment of himself. You know what I'm saying? When you are locked in an argument with a person, when you are locked in, as King says, hate. King had a saying that talked about hate. And what he said was, he's decided to stick to love because hate is too great of a burden to bear. You see, forgiveness is typically not for the other person. Forgiveness is to free you. You understand what I'm saying? When you're arguing with a person, sometimes being quiet and letting them talk isn't just for them. It's for you. It's tired. It's tiring arguing. It's tiring screaming and yelling. And it doesn't mean you agree with everyone. It just means conserve your energy. Conserve your energy for bigger things. And so when Kimmie was interrupting Maurice, I didn't like it. I said, girl, let him talk. Let him talk. Let him get to his understanding. maybe he'll come to a realization that, yeah, why do I like to have sex 3 times a day? Maybe he'll come to an understanding that he is a sex addict and that he don't want to be one anymore. So in order to not be a sex addict, just like an alcoholic or a drug addict, maybe he'll start to control himself for himself. But see, what Kimmy wants him to do is control himself for her because she don't want to do it. Nah. Maurice won a lot of these arguments with Kimmy on principle. But the reason why he won it is because Kimmy couldn't be truthful. She couldn't be truthful of what her own addiction was. And what she's going to have to go back and realize is, well, why did you engage in sex 2 and 3 times a day in the first place, Kimmy? Now, we could call Maurice a sex addict. He was there because that's how he soothes himself or whatever else. He can go back to his childhood and figure out, why is this his method, right? But you got to ask yourself, why were you willing to do what you were willing to do, right? What were you healing inside yourself? You see, Kimmy want to act like she ain't got no wounds. We can focus on Maurice's wounds and what created this self-soothing and now wanting Kimmy to soothe him sexually 3 and 4 times a day. We could talk about it. And we talked about that in my last video. But Kimmy gonna have to figure out what got her there in the first place. And then she can come to Maurice and say, you know what? I figured out why I did what I did. And now that I'm here now, 5 years later, I'm not gonna be that girl no more. I'm not gonna be that woman anymore. I don't want to be that person. So you shouldn't want to be that person. He shouldn't want to be that person either, but for his own reasons. So we both actually need to evolve. We're not forcing each other to evolve. We are growing and saying, hey, sitting up in the house, smoking crack, getting high, drinking. Yeah, we both was doing it. But we don't want to be those people anymore. Both of you are choosing a different path, not just to make the other person happy. It's because you want a different life for yourself. Think about it, Maurice. Being obsessed with sex 3 times a day, being dependent on another person 3 times a day to make you feel good, you're not even in control of your own life. You mean to tell me because you're so dependent on sex, a woman is going to have that much power over you to make or break your day? Do you want to be controlled by sex like that? You shouldn't want to not make this situation better for the woman. You should want to make it better for yourself. When you have an addiction, whether it's sex, money, drugs, it's easy to control you. It's easy to manipulate you. And then when you become a slave to your addiction, it causes all other kind of problems. It really, really does. So I think Kimmy is going down the wrong road. I think she needs to let Maurice go to individual therapy to figure out the why, because Kimmy interrupts it. She interrupts the healing because she just wants to get to the point where she's right and he's wrong. And she needs her own individual therapy to figure out what it is she has to do. She keep wanting to bring all this thing up about he was soft hand era and he was a doer back then. I'm not saying that her love language can't be acts of service and that when he was building things and fixing cabinets, those were acts of service and that turned her on. But where Kimmy's lying to herself is that if he started building a whole house, she would go back to having sex 3 times a day. And that's a lie. I don't believe it. You're done with it, period, Kimmy. You're done with it. You didn't really want it in the first place. You did it just to get something. And now you don't want to do it anymore, but you don't want to admit it. And now what you want to do is you want to renegotiate the relationship because you've hit this mark. And what Maurice is saying is, I don't want to renegotiate. Okay, I haven't changed, Kimmy. I'm the same old person I've been, And I believe Maurice, I believe Kimmy was putting out at a much higher degree than she was before. I believe it, a much higher degree. Because I think Maurice is so selfish that if he was not sexually satisfied by Kimmy before marriage, he would have never married her. So that's why I believe him. Kimmy can run around and say, well, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing that. You was doing it enough that he was happy with it. Because Maurice is so selfish that there'd be no way he would have married you if he was not sexually satisfied. Period, point blank. That's why I believe him. Whatever the count is, whether it was every day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day, whatever the count is, Kimmy, I believe Maurice, I believe you were doing it. I believe you did it in order to get him, to be with him, to get him to marry you. I believe that you were growing tired of it way before you got cancer. I think when you got cancer, right, you not only were tired of it mentally, you physically couldn't do it. And then once you stopped doing it physically, you said, you know what, after cancer changes you. Surviving cancer changes you. Okay, you can't be on the doorsteps of possibly dying and that not change you. Kimmy, ain't nothing wrong with you admitting, you know what, I changed. I can admit I changed. One is I changed because cancer changes you. It makes you see life differently. It makes you say, I don't want to spend my life doing things that actually don't make me happy, right? And sleeping with you, Maurice, 3 times a day, it don't make me happy. And Maurice is saying, well, I thought you did it because I was sexy and good looking. Nah, you're not that good looking. And what Kimmy is saying is, I've changed. And that no longer floats my boat. And I'm not willing to give up so much of myself to make you happy. You see it right there. You know, oftentimes some women in marriage, they will do what Kimmy did for more than 5 years. They'll do it for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. And it may not just be the sex part, it's other things. But this is what I say, ladies. Don't be afraid to tune up your marriages. Confront things in your marriages sooner. See, when you wait 20 years to confront an issue that's been going on for 20 years, seriously confront it. By the time you get there, you so fed up, you don't have no energy. The only option you feel you have at that time is to walk away from marriage. And that's what a lot of women do. A lot of people avoid doing these marriage tune-ups because they rather just not address it. But it doesn't really go anywhere. It just builds up and builds up and builds up. Then 20 years down the line, you're saying, dang, I've been doing something for 20 years. I don't like it. And now it's gone on for so long that I've allowed this person to get so used to me giving up so much of myself that after 20 years, it's really going to be hard to change him or to get him to be able to evolve and us evolve together. It's hard confronting things in relationships every 5 years. Some people say, well, let's just not talk about it. Let's just endure it. But then after 15, 20 years, so much stuff has piled up. It's hard to sift through it. So people might say, Kimmie and Maurice, there's no hope for them. I don't want to say that. But they are at a junction point. And both of them are going to have to come to the conversation truthfully. Maurice is going to have to admit how he got here. Why does he need sex 3 times a day? And then Kimmie's going to have to admit that she enabled him. She got high with him. She got drunk with him, but she don't want to do it anymore. And she got to stop. And she got to ask herself, why was she sitting there doing that with him in the first place? They've got to both be honest with, why did this work for us 5 years ago, but it doesn't work for us now? And how do we free ourselves of some bondages where it's holding us in this space, even though is not allowing us to move forward. They're going to have to be willing to do it. You see? And that's the hard part about any relationship. Do you break up? That's the question to everybody. Do you break up every 5 years after you've changed and you've grown and get you a new partner? Do you try to work it out with the partner you have doing intensive therapy every 5 years or more often? Do you say, no, I don't want to do intensive therapy in a marriage or get another man and just be single your whole life? Right? Everybody has to make their individual choices, but everybody's just recycling everybody. I mean, when you go out and get you a new man, you just getting a man that somebody else threw away. You're not getting no brand new man. You're not getting no brand new woman. You really not. And it ain't even a guarantee. You know what I'm saying? That wherever you are now, that in happiness, that you will be in happiness in 5 years, because that's what vows are about, in sickness and in health. For richer, for poor, is basically saying no matter what comes our way, we're going to stick with each other and figure it out. Maybe it looks different. Stop trying to think that your marriage has to look like everybody else's marriages. Stop thinking your marriage has to look the same and look like 5 years ago. Be open to change. Be open to what works for us now. What is different? You see what I'm saying? Roles, responsibilities could change. Lots of things could change. Maybe he was the breadwinner when you first got married, but your career got popping. Now you're the breadwinner. You got to renegotiate the marriage. Maybe, you were at home. You could take care of the housekeeping, but not anymore. Now he's got to step up with the housekeeping. Before you didn't have no kids. Now you got kids. This idea that relationships stay stagnant is a myth. And when you come in with the expectation that you will never have to renegotiate or restructure your marriage, then you won't be married for long. The idea that what Maurice is holding on to is, I don't want to renegotiate having sex 2 and 3 times a day. I want to keep that. Right? But somebody's got to help Maurice and see, is that serving you well? Forget about if it's serving Kimmy. Is it serving you well to be a slave to a woman with a vagina where you like a baby, you can't even eat without your mama breastfeeding you? You see, if a woman takes away the tit from a baby, the baby dies. Maurice, what you willing to do? Just keep finding women who's willing to sex you up 3 times a day. That's what Kimmy told him. You can get that from any woman, right? You can get that from any woman. And Maurice looked at her like, well, maybe I will. And that's when Kimmy's going to have courage. Because right now, that's what Kimmy's afraid of. Kimmy's afraid that if I stop satisfying him 2 and 3 times a day, he will go out and he'll get it from another woman. Now Kimmy's got to ask herself, what is the price I would have to pay to keep Maurice's penis in this house? And what Maurice is telling her, if you want my penis to stay in this house, then you will need to lay down with me whenever, how often I want you to. And what Kimmy's going to have to ask herself, is Maurice's penis worth all that? Is her own happiness, right? Her own joy, her own control over her own body. Is it worth it? Is it worth it to keep his penis in your house for you to become the person that you no longer want to be, just so you don't have to have your man go out and cheat with you? And then Maurice, sometimes, hey, how many couples have we seen who circle back? We saw with Eva and her man, Eva Marcel. Remember, she got divorced because her husband cheated. We saw it. I'm thinking of people we may know. We saw it with Nene and Greg. You know, we saw with different people. You know, you can have a boundary and say, listen, I'm not going to tolerate no cheating. But if you decide you want to cheat, you go ahead on and go out. I'll let you go because I'm not going to become a slave to you. You see what I'm saying? You got to ask yourself, what is the price you want to pay? You want to pay. A lot of these people like the Maurices, they know the fear of Kimmie. So he feels he has an upper hand. That's why he's holding his position. But Maurice is believing that that's a good life. Maurice is believing that the world of getting sex when you want it, sleeping around with a bunch of women is worth it. And what someone needs to help Maurice with is understand, why are you so dependent on women to soothe you? Why does all your peace and joy and comfort come from a woman soothing you 3 times a day? Think about that, Maurice. Think about that. But hey, Kimmie, you got some decisions to make. But even in your decision makings, you're going to have to admit some truths too, some mistakes you made, and come truthful about the reason why you are changing and making a different choice for your life. Because ain't nothing wrong with the different choice you're making. A lot of women are with you. I'm with you. But I'm not with this lying. I'm not with the lying. I'm not with not being truthful and honest about who you are and who you were and what you were willing to do to get here. You're going to have to be truthful about that, Kimmie. You really, really are. But that's all I got, y'all. Talk to you later. Bye.